Copy.
We're live. Woo!
Woo!
Wait, why is it not working?
Oh boy. Okay. What's up, everybody? I'm gonna give it a sec to let people come in if they get alerts or whatnot. Try to figure out the link for this. Oh, there it is. I found it and tweet it out.
Yeah, do that.
I just heard my self talking the same sentence I just did 5 seconds ago.
I'm gonna post this to my MySpace account. Really get the views going.
MySpace.
Wow, we just bumped up to 10 viewers. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, everybody.
Well, then we should probably do stuff instead of just sitting here.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's not a bad
Yeah, why are we here again? Like a draft guide, right?
Oh.
Something like that.
We are here because we released a Dynasty draft guide for Dynasty League football. This is a fantastic product and resource for all of you Dynasty players out there who are entering any startup drafts this year. This group, plus a few others, Ryan McDowell, Ken Kelly, they all contributed to the Dynasty draft guide, which is like I said, an awesome resource, almost 140 pages PDF. So we just wanted to get together and talk a little bit about the guide, talk some Dynasty stuff, answer some questions, do some awesome things. But I think the first step is going to be to introduce everybody here. So we can I'm just going to start in clockwise order based on my screen. So John, you're up first. John, introduce yourself. Tell the people your Twitter, what you contributed to the Dynasty Draft Guide. Let the people know.
All right. Hey, I'm John. You can find me on Twitter at John_Hesterman. As far as the draft guide, I did some work with values, some free agency. Also contributed to Superflex, specifically going like quarterback heavy in your startup draft. And also worked on like NFL draft winners and losers, like which players stand to benefit or lose the most during the draft. So that's some of the stuff I contributed during the process.
Awesome. Jeff, what's up, man? Tell the people who you are, where they can find you, what you did to the guide.
All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Jeff, Twitter handle at FFJeffSmith. I did the Buff series, the non-tight end ones. That's basically anybody that was outside the top 12. We all know there's only 2 or 3 tight end ones, but by numbers, we went tight end 12 or later. I did the vets, the valuable vets I did, some of the strategies, robust running back balance, and the Superflex portion of the zero QB strategy was mine as well. So had a lot of fun doing it.
Yes, sir. Jeff, your name was all over the content sheet and all those articles, man. It was awesome. Awesome. Shane, the man himself, you're up.
Yeah, I didn't do much. I read a lot. I read a lot of stuff. And I talked to people, you people. That's about it. And then now Scott.
Yep, Scott, go ahead.
Well, Shane, you're so modest, trying to not take credit for all the work that you did. Yeah, at Charles Chill, FFB, Dynasty and Chill, a lot of the structure that you see talking about league formats, tight end premium, 2 PPR, safe leagues, DLF champion series, point per carry, a lot of those extreme formats, formulating strategy. Those were my pieces that I contributed to the guide. Also did some of the other solo articles on the free agents, on the breakouts, on the values. And then also all of us contributed to the Superflex strategy. I thought that was personally one of the most fascinating things because we all contributed one of the strategies for the Superflex quarterback strategy part, which is cool. So, yeah, it was a good time. It was a lot of planning, a lot of content meetings. Took a lot of work behind the scenes, obviously, to get this together. I just wrote and let Shane and everyone else edit. So good to be here. This should be fun.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So this was basically almost a year in the works. And then we assembled the team, and we basically didn't write anything until like January because we wanted the year to be done. We wanted the most up-to-date information and whatnot. So it was basically a grind from January until we set the deadline at the Super Bowl for written content. And then just all the behind the scenes work of getting the content together, editing it, doing all that stuff, getting it to the PDF and graphics. And it was absolutely insane. But that product is out right now. You can go to DLF, become a DLF premium subscriber, and get it for free, as well as all the benefits and stuff to being a year-long DLF subscriber. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm going to turn to the chat real quick because our boy J Mike is in the chat. He said it's a party for DLF. Let's go. What's up, J Mike? Dude, I hope we see you in Canton again. That was awesome 2 years ago. So I hope we can get to see you again this year. Leave some comments down below. Anybody, if you guys have any questions, any Dynasty stuff that you want to talk about, here's some information. We can talk about some of the stuff that just came out today. Aaron Jones re-signed with the Green Bay Packers on a 4-year deal. Likewise, and not so similarly, Taysom Hill signed a 4-year deal, which is really a 1-year deal with the New Orleans Saints. So I guess kind of before any questions possibly come in, we could talk about those two things initially and just kind of get everybody's read on both situations. So I think the most interesting one is the Aaron Jones one, because I feel like that at least has more Dynasty immediate impact because everybody was super high on AJ Dillon and whatnot. So I'm just going to open up. I'm not going to call on anybody, but if anybody has any opinions on that one way or another, let's hear it.
It's good. I think it's good. Look,
I'll chime in. Come on, Shane. Mannequin Chill. Shane just made a quick drop the other night on Mannequin Chill. He goes, well, the Packers are just going to re-sign Aaron Jones. So I'll turn it over to you. I just want to give you kudos for saying that because you dropped it in there, and I kind of thought you were kidding, but it happened.
No, they were still looking to re-sign him. They didn't want to tag him because I think they knew that would have pissed him off. And the fact that they didn't tag him probably meant that they were close. And look at that. 3 days later, they have a contract. I haven't seen any of the particulars come out other than it's 4 years, but we all know contracts don't mean a thing in the NFL. I'm guessing it ties him there at least another 2. Now, I'm thinking he's still a top 12 running back for 2 more seasons. I know that takes him out to old man age, 28 years old at running back. But he was a strong buy for me before this. You should have been buying him before this. If you try to buy him now, you're going to be paying full price. Not like Laviska Shenault. You're going to have to give up full freight for him. So you should have bought him low 2 weeks ago. I don't know who I'm yelling at. I'm sorry.
Well, it was $13 million at signing. And I think I've seen some comments today. Well, why didn't they just franchise tag him? I think the bottom line was Aaron Jones would have been pissed off if they franchise tagged him. That's why they didn't do it. They weren't going to tag him because now you're stuck with, you have to put that $8.5 million or whatever it was aside. And he could just sit out and he could say, I'm not playing on the tag. So then you're committed to that $8 million and you're stuck. And then you got to go to Aaron Rodgers and say, well, hey, we committed that $8.5 million to a running back that may or may not be there on opening day. I mean, he hired Drew Rosenhaus at the end of the season. That was not so that he could get tagged and play on a tag. It was to get money. It was to hit the market. So I think the Packers kind of knew if they tag him, and I guess the Packers have been the one team that hasn't used the franchise tag in the last decade. They don't typically use the tag, so that the tag was kind of off the table. I've seen people say, well, why didn't they just tag him? They could have got him for $8.5 million for 1 year. That guy wasn't playing on the tag. That was going to be trouble in the locker room. It was going to be trouble from day one if they would have tagged him. So I didn't think they'd re-sign him, but here we are. And it definitely affects AJ Dillon's value. I want to hear from everybody on what you think it does with AJ Dillon's value, because I think that's where you kind of had to take a side. And some people are winning today. Some people have lost.
I don't know that the market was that hot either, seeing some of the stuff from Drew Rosenhaus. It kind of was, he said he wanted to stay with the Packers, but I don't know how many suitors were out there that were going to give him a better deal, quite honestly.
Miami seemed in on him, at least initially.
Yeah, Miami was one of the teams that
Miami can get Connor for $3 or $4 million, and I mean, obviously Connor's not Aaron Jones, but 3-4 million is a lot better than 14 or 12.
Well, sometimes you get what you pay for, though. Aaron Jones.
You absolutely always get what you pay for.
12 million. It's because he's one of the best running backs in the league. Connor, 3-4 million. He's a very good running back if he can stay on the field.
Absolutely.
But Miami can go any way they want to. I mean, they basically can't make a wrong move. They could draft a running back in the draft. They could overdraft a running back, and it wouldn't be a bad move, as long as they get a wide receiver in there somewhere too.
That was the point I was going to bring up. Is one of the first takeaways I had about the Aaron Jones signing was that limits the pool of available receivers they're going to be looking at during the free agency period. That was one of the first things I thought about, because he just took all that money off the table. And I don't think I'm alone here either. I think there were people that were hoping like a Will Fuller, a Curtis Samuel, or something like that. And I think he just shot those chances kind of like right in the foot with this signing. And that was one of the other things I thought about. I like the signing. I like Aaron Jones in that offense, but at the same time, this does reduce the wide receiver market that they're going to be able to pull from in free agency.
TY.
They're going to lose Corey Linsley too. He's one of the best centers in the league. They're not going to be able to re-sign him. He's definitely going to hit the market. So that was almost a sacrifice of signing Jones. You're going to have to replace his center, which, I'm not going to pretend to be a offensive line connoisseur, but losing a center that they've had for a while is going to be somewhat of a loss, I think. So that'll be interesting to see how they address that.
I'm not an offensive line guru, but center's important. I know that. Very important.
They give the ball to the quarterback, Shane. You know
very
that?
Important. Here's the thing.
One of the 5 most important offensive linemen.
You can get an elite offensive lineman anywhere in the draft. Like, we've seen those hit from anywhere in the draft. I'm sure the hit rates are higher earlier in the draft. Packers have already shown they don't believe in drafting wide receivers since Devontae Adams, or maybe actually since they drafted 36 of them in 3 years ago when they drafted Equinemius St. Brown and
Geronimo
and Marvelous Scantling.
Jamon Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Equinemius St. Brown back to back.
Yes.
Well, so to be fair to the Packers, they don't believe in drafting starters, and typically so.
Yeah. And if you look at the comments, don't forget Devin Funchess.
Hey, we have a draft guy question added.
Yeah, we have here. So I got 2 comments real quick. This one's from Ruben Devin Funchess in here on this Aaron Jones talk. He would have to re-sign, right? He signed a 1-year deal and then opted out.
It just translates over.
He took a pay cut. Yeah, he took like a $750,000 pay cut.
Yeah, he took a huge pay cut.
There you go. And then Devontae Adams.
Absolutely.
To the moon. Although I think he's already on the moon. Can he go to Can he go to Mars? Is that a thing? Maybe. I don't know. So we got some questions from J Mike here, our boy J Mike. First one is, was the Dynasty Draft Guide made with the idea that there'd be updated versions moving toward/after the NFL draft? Shane, would you like to take that one?
Yes, there will be multiple. We'll be making one sometime right after free agency, the draft, right? Mm-hmm. One prior to the season again. We wanted to get the first one out there for the hardcore junkies like ourselves. But we know that a lot of people like the draft in May, and then the real latecomers might even like the draft in July. I'm not sure why they'd wait that long. Some people do. But yeah, we're definitely going to be updating it because free agency and the NFL draft, the way they impact things is just, it's bananas. And then some of us had articles that they were working on and they didn't get them finished in time for the first draft guide. So they're going to have them at it too. I won't mention any names.
Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah. We are planning on one, if not by the end of the month after free agency, in early April, to address all the free agency stuff. And then one after the NFL draft as well, because obviously things will shake up with all the rookies coming in. So yeah, we just want to get this one out, the first iteration out right now, because I feel like at least 90% of the information in there is still very relevant and evergreen. And it's not like we have to update, Aaron Jones's thing and it's going to ruin whatever it is in there. But yeah, there will be more moving forward. And then J Mike hit us with another one again. This is a really philosophical question here. In our research for the guide, what's some of the content or info that really jumped out or stuck with us? So I can let anybody jump in on that one if anybody's got anything.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on what Scott mentioned earlier, the approach we took to Superflex was really interesting because you had 3 varying strategies, QB heavy, QB late, and then kind of that mid QB option for Superflex. And the way we handled that with each of us taking a separate facet of it and writing it, and we held a subsequent draft using that, like a mock draft using that, which was a really good way to bring some of the information that you see in those articles was from some of the mock drafts that we did after the kind of the concept initialized. And I thought that was a really interesting way to approach that and to see it through to the end.
Yep. So yeah, there's different strategies in there, and everybody took a different one. And it's not to say that you necessarily agreed with your strategy. You just kind of wrote about it. Because I feel like
it was kind of neat that nobody else at DLF knew we all each had a strategy either.
Yeah.
We had the other participants, so it made it very real.
Mm-hmm. So, when you're doing the research for those strategies, you can kind of see that, there might be pitfalls in one or strengths to another, stuff like that. And then when you combine all of it, it gives you a really nice, bird's eye view of different ways to attack Superflex and, go with whatever you feel like is best for you.
And I'll just highlight, read pages 71 through 76 in the next 4 days. That's the free agent section. It may change. So just if you have limited time, just read those pages. And because that stuff will probably change in the next couple of weeks. Just throwing it out there.
As far as the content thing, I don't know if that's what you meant, J. Mike, was if anything stood out, but something I thought that was neat when I was doing the non-tight end ones was when Smith became the coach in Atlanta. He was the tight ends coach with Delaney Walker, so that kind of got me a little bit excited about Hayden Hurst, just because I know how much of a target hog Delaney Walker was in that offense. So with an aging Julio Jones, maybe Hurst gets a little love from his head coach.
And I'll throw it out there, J. Mike. I did the articles on DLF Champ Series and Safe Leagues. And really the big difference between those two is one has 3 receivers and one has 2. So when you really dive in and you examine the values of tight ends and flexes versus the receivers, it makes a big difference when you're talking about a 2 PPR premium for tight ends and you look at the values of receivers and how much deeper it goes into the flexes when you only have to start 2 receivers. It definitely changes your strategy a little bit and it changes your roster construction. So that was something I kind of knew in my head, but until I laid them out side by side, one format with 2 extra roster spots and then one format with 1 extra receiver, until you lay them out side by side, I kind of just assumed that they were the same. But when you compare, in the flexes, when you compare the tight ends with 2 receivers and the tight ends with 3, it does change the distribution a little bit. So check those 2 out. I think they're back-to-back chapters in the guide. And you can see some noticeable differences when you look at the 2 formats. So that kind of struck me when I was doing those 2 pieces.
Also, it's worth mentioning with the news today that if you get into the 2021 free agency value section, the first player listed is Jameis Winston.
Nice.
Does he stay with the Saints?
For sure.
I think so. If you look at some of the speculation and whatnot around that contract, you can see it's meant to be a cap space saver. I think you mentioned it earlier. It's a 1-year deal. I think they're tinkering with him right now as far as contract status, but I think they want to roll with him. I mean, you've got a guy that's already thrown for 5,000 yards once, sitting behind Drew Brees for season 1. I give the kid a shot to light it up for an already explosive offense.
Yeah, I think they paid the way they structured that deal. They basically paid Taysom a lot of his money up front for him to step aside and give Winston the shot to be the starter. And looking at what Taysom's going to make, I think most of us would have probably taken that and said, I'll still play my normal role.
Right.
I'm Taysom Hill. I'm taking any contract they offer me. You kidding me? I'm so overpaid.
Then they can cut him next year.
Yeah. Damn.
So we got
I was gonna say Bob's got a question down there too.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go down here in order. Bob's got a question here. What kind of content do we have on the incoming class for this? So I know, speaking from at least a draft guide perspective, we have the rookie guide that comes out from DLF every single year. I think the intent is to not necessarily like rework it, but just kind of revamp it a little bit, incorporate it in with the draft guide that DLF already produces and now incorporate it in this year and offer that. And then also I myself am working on some additional rookie tools for DLF off of David Wilsey's like running back model, which has a lot of fantastic data and stuff on running backs. And then Peter Howard, the great PA Howdy, in his database, he's got phenomenal data and stats on all rookie positions, and just trying to incorporate more of that kind of stuff into tools and stuff, and give like hit rates and just kind of comps and all that stuff. Some of the stuff that I've been trying to do with YouTube channel content for rookie profiles in general, just kind of applying that to the entire class. So I'm really excited about all that as it comes into the NFL draft in like a month and a half. It's like 6 weeks away, which seems crazy.
And we do have the early look at the rookie tiers too in there. And then
Yes,
of
we
course, the ADP and rankings, rookie ADP, rookie rankings are in there as well. But though I'm sure after the draft, there'll be much more rookie content in it as well, in that update.
But we're gonna have rookie stuff, you know that. I mean, I'm just looking at the list of stuff on the idea filter. I don't want to get into too much of it because some of it might be housed on the regular site and some of it might be housed in the guide. But you can anticipate at least 1 or 2 mocks and all that hit rate stuff that Addison was talking about. And we'll see. Some of us might get real excited and just do wild rookie stuff. We'll see.
Yes, sir. Joe down here asks, where does Winston on the Saints, assuming that he's the starter, fit into quarterback tiers for everybody? I think this is a fantastic question.
Are we talking single QB or superflex?
Superflex. That's all that counts.
We'll just go superflex. Yeah, just within quarterbacks, where would Winston rank for you?
I mean,
I
off
guess
the
it
top
would
of my
kinda
head,
depend on
I'm off the top of my head in that offense. I'm putting him at QB7, QB8.
Oof. Really?
Man.
Yeah, you're bold.
A little bit.
Wait. Hold on. All right. So Mahomes. Yeah. So stop me or correct me if I'm wrong here. Mahomes, Josh Allen,
Watson,
Kyler, and Watson, Dak, and is it
Lawrence.
Is Lawrence above him for you in Superflex?
You put Lawrence above him?
John.
Yes.
I'm asking you.
No, I wouldn't put Lawrence.
You said QB 7 or 8, and I just named 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You're not putting Lawrence ahead of him?
I'm not.
Well, you said
So
that
you got
twice
names
now.
like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson.
So I'd put Russell Wilson up there, and I think that's where the tier break is. Russell Wilson, and then I think Jameis, and then I think you've got Herbert, Burrow. Herbert, Lawrence, Burrow.
The Gunslingers.
Yeah.
I mean, shout out to Joe. As much as I like Winston, he's still not a top 20 quarterback in Dynasty. I mean, he's down with Wentz, Darnold. He's in that range. He has a path to being a quarterback 1 in a season, but he has absolutely zero job security long term. This is basically a one year shot for him. I think he's still behind Cousins, Tannehill, Stafford, Mayfield, all the quarterbacks this year. Lance, Wilson, Justin Fields. He's behind all those guys in Dynasty. I don't think you can even get a first rounder for him in Superflex right now in a 12 team. You'd be lucky to get one of those top 10 picks. So I think he's probably like late first round range. And I think he's in the similar gamble range as Darnold and Wentz. I like Daniel Jones still, but I mean, I think anywhere between quarterback 15 and 22 is fair, but I don't think you can get him up into that. Even the Stafford, Rodgers, Tannehill tier. I don't think you could even get him that high. I don't think personally.
Ruben said Lamar too, so I'm assuming you're taking Lamar over Winston, John.
Yeah, so that puts him down 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that, unfortunately, as good as Winston can be, people are out on him in Dynasty. So he is never going to carry the same value as Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is worth 3 times what Winston is, just based on value. So I don't think you're ever going to get there with Winston. Probably half the teams in your league are like, yeah, he's never going to be a full-time starter more than 1 year. So I just don't think his value is going to rebound. So it's all production for me.
I can see the argument in a couple months. If Mac Jones goes to Carolina and Winston does sign with the Saints, I could see a legitimate Mac Jones versus Jameis Winston dynasty debate.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones at that rate would be a mid to late first rounder at best in Superflex. If he lands with the Panthers at 8.
I'll give you a second round pick for Winston. That's about as comfortable as I feel.
Well, let's pose this
point
question
in Superflex where you're now like after a first round, that first round is so deep. It starts getting into the second round where guys like Rashad Bateman, Rondale Moore, even like Jalen Waddle and stuff are down in like that first and second round fringe range. Are you taking those guys over Jameis?
I am.
I feel like you do.
Yeah. Because it's like Scott said, there's no guarantee that, we talked about this in one of our other chats earlier today. Like we're taking a leap of faith with Wentz not being actually cooked. Looking at his numbers last year, we're kind of taking the same leap of faith with Jameis that he can somehow just correct being a turnover machine. And some of the things that he did,
he got LASIK though.
You can't. Yeah, unfortunately, they can't LASIK your brain. And when you make bad decisions, you tend to make bad decisions. It's just as a guy that makes bad decisions, you can tell yourself not to make bad decisions going forward. But when you're in the moment, you're going to make a bad decision. And that's just kind of who he is. So I don't know that I'll ever feel comfortable with him as one of my top 2 quarterbacks.
Not only that, some of the vets are gone. Jared Cook's gone. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. I mean, after Michael Thomas, we got a bunch of possibles. What if? Traquan Smith and Troutman, et cetera. So I mean,
back to the draft guide, Traquan Smith was a guy I said that maybe you might want to buy low on because he's going to have a shot there at least, right? And we know Winston likes to air it out a little bit.
He does.
Let's see what his contract is, because I guess I look at it like this. If he's on a 1-year deal, who has a higher upside for 1 year, Jalen Hurts or Winston?
Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. Exactly.
Hurts.
So how can you even rank him? And Jalen Hurts is not a top 12 dynasty quarterback. So how can you put Winston up there? Because I look at all these guys that are on the back end outside the top 16 or 18. The way the NFL is, every year they're turning over. You have to expect that every year you're going to see 8 to 12 potential turnover jobs. So it's like, if you don't have a guy that's locked in for multiple years, it's a 1-year audition, right?
And maybe that's where some of my aggressive nature and wanting to rank him that high is I'm kind of assuming that I guess the assumption is being made that it's going to be a multi-year deal, that this is going to be where he's going to be. So I think that's part of the reasoning that I had. I know the guy can put up yards. I know the guy can put up touchdowns. I mean, he's a lock for 300 yards a game, it seems like. So I guess I was taking all that into account. You guys are definitely making me want to rethink that a little bit. So I'm going to have to sit down and go through some of the math and look things over. But I think you're right. I think seeing where his contract status is going to be a real key denominator and into where do we value him moving forward.
Yep. Cool. So we have another Taysom Hill question down here, but just want to address some of these other comments. Sam Wallace, what's up, man? Hey, everyone. Hope you all having a great night. Appreciate you all. Or y'all, if you're Southern, like me.
But first of all, real quick, y'all is not a Southern thing because we say it in Philly, and we are not
y'all.
Southern.
Well, you just want to be different of Pittsburgh.
All right, Sam, I'd like you to retype your comment and just put y'all, and then you'll put y'all.
Appreciate y'all.
We're very different
Thanks,
from Pittsburgh because we're a real city. So any more comments?
Okay. Steven said, what is single quarterback? It's a dying format, even though I don't need to get into that anyway.
What's funny about
it's not pen and paper, but it's kind of stepping stone between pen and paper and where we're at now.
But now it's kind of a fun mind exercise to play in single QB leagues, just to kind of expand your thought process since we're still used to Superflex now. So I got a feeling like I'm going to join a bunch of single QB leagues next year just because it's different.
Yeah. And you're like in the 20th round of your startup draft and you took like Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. But you know what? Superflex QB leagues, it hurts my soul that I'm drafting Mitch Trubisky and Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. Like, these are guys that don't deserve to be on rosters. And, you know, and even in Superflex, I should just pass on them because the chances that they're ever anything useful is low. But, you know, at Superflex, you're like, I got to get one. And then you have to look at Mitchell Trubisky on your roster. You know how deflating that is every time it happens? It just hurts.
Sam fixed it for everybody. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it very much. You're the man.
And if you guys have any openings in one quarterback free leagues on ESPN, hit up Shane. He's looking for some.
I was hoping for Flea Flicker, but, you know, ESPN works.
Yeah.
All right, so we can get into this awesome question here from John. Suggestions on selling Taysom in a 2-quarterback. Is that no points per carry? So that deflates the Taysom Hill rushing upside. 21, 22, 23 pick value, or 110 through 112 plus Taysom Hill for 107, 108. 2-quarterback league.
107, 108 all day, not close. I mean, you're locking in 107, 108, 2 QBs. You're going to see Mac Jones and the other 4 quarterbacks go before you pick at 8. So you're guaranteed Etienne, Harris, Pitts, or Chase, one of the 4. So, I mean, to me, that's a smash. Hill's pretty much worthless, I think. He's a gadget player if they sign Winston. He has one path. It's this year on the Saints. He has no other value in Dynasty. So if they sign Winston, he's dead for Dynasty. So give me the 107, 108.
Bam.
I can't. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. So.
I think that's pretty solid because you can't sell Taysom Hill, or you can't get a first straight up for him. You got to be super lucky. You got to find some other owner who really believes that he's going to be a starter. I think you'd be hard pressed to even find a second for him, even if it's next year's second.
Well, I mean, they signed Winston, and you're basically better off just holding Taysom Hill in case he gets in the game for a couple weeks. He has no trade value. They signed Winston. So if this is in your inbox and you can move up 2 spots, 110 to 108, I just think you take it, be happy that you're going to be in that. I mean, at worst, in a 2 QB where you actually have to start 2, someone's going to want Mac Jones. I mean, you may be literally sitting there with Chase or Najee Harris at 108, and that's a smash. So, yeah, I would just take the deal and not worry about what the Saints do, even if they let Taysom start some games.
Yeah.
From OnePlus Nord N10 5G.
Is Alexa talking?
Alexa, every once in a while, will just start talking to me. Like, I think she's worried that I'm lonely. So she'll just kind of check in, like, how are things going? Are you okay? She's also very excited about the draft guide.
I can tell.
I'm probably going to purchase one for her.
Steven agrees. 7-8, no contest. He says you might even get a rookie quarterback there, which I feel like is still a strong possibility. Even in 2 quarterbacks, you might get one of this. What is it, 5 or 6?
You're counting 5, right? With Mac Jones.
5.
You got a shot at Mac, I think. I think in a true 2 QB league, if you ever played in one of those that's 12 teams or more, like it's probably the top 4 picks should be quarterbacks just based on the scarcity. But Mac, you never know. Mac could fall to the 108. That's definite. I think could happen.
Yeah. If you get like the 7 and like the first 4 picks are quarterbacks, and then 5 and 6 are Etienne and Harris or Jamar.
Yep.
Money. All right, we hit the end of the questions. Oh no, now we have to fill space.
Oh, well, I'm just gonna say what's up to Matt and Fantasy Flock. What's up, guys?
Appreciate y'all. Piggybacking on Sam's comment, y'all.
Matt
Good.
said he says y'all, and he's from St. Louis.
So St. Louis
So-
isn't southern because it's Missouri, right? St. Louis, Missouri. Isn't that south?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Midwest.
Midwest? That same difference. I'm from Philly, so you're all south to me.
Where's Kansas City, Shane? What state?
Missouri.
There, boom.
oh. I said that once really smart in a Facebook group. Somebody was saying that they're from Kansas, so they want to support the local group. And I'm like, you don't have a football team. And some people didn't get the joke. They thought I was serious.
See, to everybody
Which I
who's
was.
just tuning in, you didn't know there was going to be geography and jokes on here, did you?
Yeah, I don't
Geography with
appreciate
Shane.
the pop quiz geography questions because that's not going to go well for me. And the math, I really don't appreciate when there's math problems involved with any podcast or show. And that's why I send everything to Addison when I'm writing articles. And I'm like, are these numbers actually correct? And then he tells me yes.
That's why I appreciated John's question. John's question was like worded like an SAT question.
Well, and if you're ever doing projections, basically all you do is just take stats in a small sample size and just double it or triple it. And that's how you get the answer. So just keep that in mind going forward. If a guy had 100 carries, if he gets 300, you just triple his stats everywhere. Boom, done.
Math made easy.
We got a question from Joe. Joe down here on YouTube. He says, now that Breeze has jumped ship, is it time to sell Alvin Kamara? I think this is another fantastic question, but I feel like Kamara's value has dropped somewhat given the idea that Breeze was going to retire before he made it official today. So I'm actually really curious to hear y'all's thoughts on Kamara because I still think he has that top 5 upside, obviously, in a single season. And if it's Winston in there too, I still believe that. But I feel like he's kind of sliding a little bit because of the splits from last year with and without Breeze. So I'm curious.
It can't be that bad, right? Like Sean Payton had to look at that in the offseason and go, guys, come on. Like, no. Alvin Kamara, what are you doing? Like, we have 2 weapons on this team, Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Like, those guys should get 70% of the touches. So you need to throw the ball to them. There's no way he doesn't say that to Winston and Taysom Hill this year, right?
I think as long as it's anybody but Taysom Hill at quarterback, Kamara's just fine.
Yeah.
That's the thing is when you've got Taysom Hill in there, Taysom wants to run just as much as anybody. And he's going to take that first read, and if it's not what he wants it to be, he's going to take off scrambling. I think it'll be fine with Winston. I just like Shane said, I just don't see how you, as Sean Payton, can scheme your offense and not include one of the best running backs in the NFL, whose dual threat capability makes him absolutely a weapon all over the formation.
So I was just curious. I went back to 2019 and with Jameis Winston for 16 games in 2019 for Tampa Bay, Rojo, Barber, and Dare all combined for a little over 80 receptions as a running back group.
As a unit. So
18.5% target share for the backs. So, I mean, if you just extrapolate what Kamara's numbers are, I mean, good receiving running backs are going to attract targets in the offense. So I personally, I think it's good for Kamara. I think it's a much better outcome than if they would have toyed with potentially playing Taysom Hill. So I don't think you really, like Addison said at the beginning, I mean, his value's dropped to the point where he's probably worth more to you right now unless you can get a very specific deal. Like if I'm trading Kamara, I need a pivot off Kamara to DeAndre Swift, or if I can work a deal where I can pay a little bit to get Jonathan Taylor or something like that. Like I'm not looking to just completely cash out for picks. I want to pivot down or pivot across the tier to somebody else if I sell Kamara, just because he's going to be a year 5 running back. So can't argue trying to get out of a year 5 running back no matter how good they are.
It will be interesting to see if they use Kamara on more actual routes and not just dump offs, because he's obviously skilled enough to run a full route tree as a wide receiver. And now that they have a quarterback that can throw the ball beyond 6 yards, it's going to be very interesting to see if they're smart enough to use him in a more expanded role, even if he sees less targets, but just a deeper, more actual routes.
And that's where I think some of the value is going to bounce back is you've got a guy that Jameis has no problem wanting to go downfield. So defenses are going to respect that. They're going to be playing a little bit deeper. And I think it bodes well on both sides, even running more routes like you mentioned. But I also think that he's going to get some of those really short to intermediate stuff, and he's going to cash on them even more because the defense is playing more legit, a quarterback with an arm.
Yeah.
And the lack of weaponry, just all of that on top of everything else that we've already said, So he should have targets, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the same thing on DLF, the QB history app. And Winston, it looked like his rookie year, he was throwing to the quarterback 23% of the time, actually 22% of the time. So I'm going to go ahead and guess they had limited weapons back then. I don't remember because it's a long time ago. The Saints definitely have limited weapons. There's Michael Thomas. Adam Troutman will be okay, I'm pretty sure. Traquan Smith could be useful as a wide receiver 3, maybe. But definitely, yeah, I'm excited to see if they use Kamara, how many targets he can end up seeing in real wide receiver routes.
Do you want to take a guess as to who the running backs were that year in 2015?
Muscle Hamster.
Yeah, Doug Martin.
That was one of his 1400 seasons.
It was one of those years.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was because it was an odd number, which was good for him because it was like every other year.
Right.
Charles Sims was there too, wasn't he?
Yep.
Oh,
Sims
I
was
was trying to
the
think of who the
receiving
second
leader.
one was, yeah.
That just hurt my soul, Scott. I'm still banking on Charles Sims as a zero running back option.
Yep.
Still.
Still.
It's going to happen.
I don't think he's in the database anymore. I think they knocked him out last year.
Oh no.
That stinks. He was a good receiver. You got to give him credit. He came in the league pretty old, but he gave you a couple good, decent years in PPR.
I'm sad because I feel like that's the way that Duke Johnson's heading, and it's just I'm not.
Look, it's as a guy that drafted Duke Johnson way too high after his what was it, like a top 16 season, and had visions of RB1 seasons. It's that dream is dead. It's never going to be. He's been through 18 coaching staffs and 3 different teams or 2 different teams, and no one likes him. It's just not going to happen.
Oh my. We got another question here. Matt, what are we doing with Josh Jacobs? Raiders said he would get more targets and catches. Are you holding on or selling Jacobs, hoping that he does get more catches?
I'm buying. And I was never a fan, but I think you don't buy based on the narrative he's going to get more targets or more catches. I mean, he's going down the path very similar to Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon. Like, he's never going to get the targets. If you just look at the rates, he's probably not going to end up getting the targets unless his snap share goes up. That's one of the issues, is that he's not one of those guys that's playing 85% of the snaps. Like, he's getting pulled off the field a lot more than you'd probably want. So if you actually look like at his targets per snap, it's not horrible. It's just he's not playing more than 60, 65% of the snaps most of the time, which, I mean, that you're just going to have limited volume when you have that. So I think I'd still buy just because I think he's very similar to some of these other backs that have kind of faded away. Like, remember last year at this time, it was all Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders, and now they're kind of like washed up at this point. Like, no one really talks about either one of those guys, and they've faded outside of the top, 12, 15 in Dynasty. So I'm actually fine pivoting from, Shane and I talked the other night, the math to get J.K. Dobbins to live up to his value. If you can pivot J.K. Dobbins to Josh Jacobs plus, like, I don't think that's a terrible bet to make. Personally, if you just crunch the numbers, I don't think you can project J.K. Dobbins for more touches than Josh Jacobs. So unless he's going to get a ton of if he's going to get a ton of receptions or a ton of targets, why is one being priced over the other? If you just put them side by side. So
we've seen what Josh Jacobs is, right? He's a running back 1. He just happens to be one that doesn't get a ton of receiving work. He gets enough that you're going to be like, why can't he get more? He's going to get more than Derrick Henry at least, which is good because he's not going to get 300 carries. He's going to get just enough that you go, man, imagine if he got 7 targets a game. But it's still going to be enough to keep him in that running back one conversation. So I'm fine with buying him. He's a guy like Scott I was off of after his rookie year when everybody was hyping him up that Gruden was going to actually use him in the receiving game. And now I'm fine with going, okay, well, this is what he is. He's still a running back one. And if you're willing to sell low on that just because he's not going to get a ton of receiving work, that's fine. I'll buy.
So March Superflex ADP has Josh Jacobs as the RB13, right behind Antonio Gibson and Ezekiel Elliott, and right ahead of Najee Harris and Miles Sanders, which I think is pretty interesting. That because I feel like Jacobs is in this weird phase in his dynasty value where like some people don't really like him. Other people don't really know like what to really do with him because they still don't really know what he is. Because in college, he was this pass catching running back, but in the NFL, he is Nick Chubb, and like they're just not using him, at least correctly in terms of what we believe. But he's still being priced at RB13, at least in ADP. And like I don't know, like I look at this, and I don't know if this is a trade that you could do right now, but like. He's ahead of Aaron Jones in ADP. He's ahead of Austin Eckler in ADP. He's ahead of Joe Mixon in ADP. Like, would you want to pivot off of Jacobs for any of those guys or turn any of those guys into Josh Jacobs?
I'd be okay with turning him into Aaron Jones. Because, again, we've seen Aaron Jones upside. You know, it's top 6 running back or the running back one. But I'll take Jacobs easily over Mixon and Eckler. Like, not even that much of a thought. Okay, that's a lie. If it's a heavy PPR league, maybe 1.5 for running backs, then I'll take Eckler over him. But if there's any kind of PPC or if it's just a normal, 1 PPR, I think I'm fine with taking Jacobs over Eckler.
I mean, I think you made the comparison. I think he is Joe Mixon. I don't know if he has I don't think he has the durability that Mixon might either. I mean, if you look at when Mixon's healthy, he takes more of a workload than Josh Jacobs does. So basically how you're going to get there with Jacobs is the same way you have to get there with Chubb or Henry. Like he needs to get the touches, which includes a lot of carries because we've been saying for 4 years, well, why doesn't Joe Mixon get more targets? His skill set says that he should, but for his career, he's less than 70% of the snaps. So he's just not out on he gets pulled off the field for whatever reason. And that's how the Raiders have used Jacobs for 2 years. So until he's just out there by default on third downs, we're going to dump him, 15 to 20 extra targets or, whatever it is. He's just not going to get there as a receiver. It's the same thing we talked about the other night with Dobbins and even with Cam Akers. Like if these guys are not getting the receiving work, the path you have to a top 12 season is very low. You need to either get touchdowns or just an extreme workload. So, I can get where Shane was saying with Eckler because Eckler could catch 70, 80 balls. But I don't know. I just think with Jacobs, you kind of know what he is. He's on a rookie deal, so he's going to be there for 3 more years. That's good. You get a little security with that. But it's an interesting question because I think you could go both ways. I actually would like to pivot down to someone like Mixon. I don't think that's a bad bet. If you told me right now, flip a coin, who has a better season next year, Mixon or Jacobs? It's probably like 55-45 either way. And if you can get a decent piece on top, I'd be fine taking Mixon. You just know you're losing a couple years on the durability or the longevity standpoint. But I don't think they're that different of a bet in terms of what they're going to produce short term.
So final point then, and question that I want for this one, in terms of the maybe losing a couple years, but not for the durability stance, would you pivot down to James Robinson off Jacobs?
What do you offer me on top?
Mid-second, high second.
So I'd do it for like this. We talked about this the other day. If I have Jacobs, if I have Dobbins, if I have Akers, I'm fine pivoting down. Give me a 2023 first in every one of those deals. And I'll take my 1 to 2 year bet. Because I think 2023 is going to be the next 2017, the next 2020. We're going to probably have 7 or 8 bell cows coming back in. And if you're holding 12-team league, if you can get your hands on like 4 or 5 of those first and you control that draft and you can just get by with the Mixons and Aaron Joneses and Zekes for the next year or two, You're rolling into that year and you're hitting the reset button on Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Kendall Milton, all the guys coming through the pipeline that are going to be the next, Akers, JT, DeAndre Swift. So that's kind of how I would play it if I have Jacobs or Sanders or even the guys from last year. Like if I can get my hands on Mixon or Aaron Jones or Zeke, I'm willing to take that 1 to 2 year bet that I can match your production, but I'm loading up on the 2023 picks.
I like that.
I actually
like that a
love
lot,
that
actually.
call.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, because from the other manager's standpoint, he's like, well, shoot, 2023 is like 2 years away. I'm not really worrying about that. I can keep my 2.04 in a Superflex league and like maybe have a shot at a, Kadarius Toney or someone like that and see what they turn into. And they're not really worried about 2 years down the road. But, that first round pick is still a first round pick. You just got to wait a little bit to cash it in.
Well, and I think the hype with that class, when you get to next spring, I've been saying this for a couple months, but when you get to next spring and you're on the clock at like the 108 and you're going, man, can I get a 2023 pick for this? People are going to go, nah. Like, do you guys remember being on the clock at the end of the first in 2019 and you're like, hey, can I get a 2020 first? People are like, no, that's Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. No. So you can't even cash out on your first on the clock because the next class is so hyped. So that's another reason to get them now before we get through this next season where everyone's going to start talking up 2023. So try to get them thrown in now. And I think the running back idea to pivot down is a great idea.
Yeah, I love that a lot. I think the only downside would be like the leagues that make people pay out that far.
Convince them to pay those dudes.
I'm gonna pay $150 or whatever for the next 2 years worth of firsts. That'll be a fun conversation, but I could definitely see a lot of that working out though. All right, so we'll move on from Josh Jacobs. We got a couple more questions in here. J Mike though hit us with for what I've consumed of the guide thus far, it's confirmed you all are wizards. Great stuff. And he said, appreciate y'all, born in Kentucky. So there you go.
You're the man, J Mike. You're the man.
Thank you, sir.
Mike.
We appreciate that very much.
We do.
Joe, again, how should Dylan owners react to the Packers re-signing of Aaron Jones? Does re-signing him mean the team won't sign a significant wide receiver in free agency? So at least the second part of that question, we did talk about Jones a little bit. We didn't really get into A.J. Dillon. We just more so talked about Aaron Jones and stuff. But we did mention about now with this deal for Aaron Jones and their already limited cap space for the Packers, that this does kind of limit their market in the free agents wide receiver pool. At least drops them out of probably Galladay, Juju, Will Fuller. They might still be in the market for like a Corey Davis, Marvin Jones, potentially.
Wouldn't be
Maybe
bad.
even a Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, and that kind of range.
Fringe Curtis Samuel range, yeah.
I read some TY rumors today too.
Now I want Curtis Samuel there because he's like Randall Cobb, except more athletic.
Faster.
Little, yeah, I think he is faster. So
not as Diesel.
Yeah.
Dylan, you're hoping he has Jamal Williams upside. Williams was a guy that you could start every time Aaron Jones was out, and sometimes in deep leagues you could start him at your last flex spot. You're just hoping that they're gonna, because Williams was actually a pretty good pass catcher. I've been told that A.J. Dillon has the skills, even though we've never seen it. So maybe the Packers are going to try him in that role because they don't really have money to go out and get anyone else. So I'd imagine that that's the role he's going to see. And I mean, what A.J. Dillon owners should do is in the future, when something like this happens and they have a player like A.J. Dillon on their roster, make note to yourself to sell him immediately when that window opens up, like it did for 3 days this week.
So I think that's an interesting caveat that I haven't really considered up until this point, is that with Jones resigning, Dillon is not that pass catching back, at least on the surface and from what we've seen of him. Jamal Williams was, and Jamal Williams for the last few years had been leading the Packers in receptions. So, he was that guy who came in and spelled Aaron Jones and caught the ball out of the backfield. So that honestly makes me more confident in Jones and his pass catching ability, because if they don't have Jamal Williams back there and they're in a passing situation, Jones is going to be the one out there, not AJ Dillon, right? I'm assuming. Unless they really go after like a true pass catching specialist. Like
So
they
here's
could
the
sign
thing.
for like a mill.
In college, Jamal Williams had 27 receptions in his freshman season. After that, he had 18, 8, and 7. So it's not like he was a giant pass receiving option in college, whereas Aaron Jones was, which is part of the frustration of when people, get into the whole, why is Jamal Williams on the field? It's a different coaching staff, obviously, but they could still look at Dillon and go, well, there's no reason he can't do this, because Jamal Williams really wasn't a prolific pass catcher in college. I mean, there's been more than a few guys that could come into the league and maybe be good for 30, 32 receptions, something like that. It will be interesting to see, though. I mean,
here's the thing, though, and kind of piggybacking off all that, and one of the names that we just brought up, if they bring in like Curtis Samuel, you can throw those receptions out the window for Dillon. I mean, that's going to be, that would be his role, I believe. Back to the Randall Cobb comparison, that would be him.
He might be the backup running back, too.
So I think something that people aren't considering is I won't be shocked if they bring back Jamal Williams, because there's those veteran cap credits where you can basically take $1.5 million of your cap and absorb it, and you get a write-off. I don't see the market for a guy like Jamal Williams being more than $3 million a year. So the Packers could literally offer him back a 1-year, $3 million deal, and they only cost $1.75 million towards their cap. And you think the Dillon owners freaked out after today? Wait until they bring back Jamal Williams on like a 1-year, $2 million deal. And then it's like, then what do you do? But I think we're going to see a lot of those. I think it's called the veteran cap exception. If you have a guy that's been on your roster for more than 4 years, you can basically write off $1.5 million of their salary cap towards your cap. And I think that's going to happen with some of these running backs that are handcuffs, like Wayne Gallman, Jamal Williams. Like I can see these guys re-signing with their teams because they know the offense. They're familiar with them. And I mean, do you guys really think Jamal Williams on the free market right now is probably worth more than maybe $4 million at most on a 1-year deal? I mean, I could see him coming back to Green Bay. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but just, if they do that, the AJ Dillon owners are going to be like, what, I should have sold this guy for the second that I could get today.
Yeah, they're gonna jump out the windows. It's gonna be that Game of Thrones gif where just people.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I guess we should really try to answer the first part of this question is, what are you doing with Dillon? Are you trying to sell him under that possibility? Are you hoping that doesn't happen and he's still like the primary handcuff to Jones? And if Jones goes down, this could be AJ Dillon's backfield. Because I feel like any offer you get right now is going to be pretty low.
It's going to be a trash offer. So I kind of feel like you're almost locked into holding him for the time being, but that's a gamble too. But it seems like the less of the two gambles. I mean, you're not going to get much for him on the open market right now.
If someone will give you what you paid for him last year, which I assume was like the 203, 204, fine. I'll make that move all day. Like, I bet on him. I gambled and it didn't hit. So let me try this again with a new guy.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Who would you prefer, AJ Dillon or Chase Edmonds?
Chase Edmonds.
Can you move Chase Edmonds for AJ Dillon now and then trade Chase Edmonds for like Clyde Edwards-Helaire like you could have with AJ Dillon like 2 days ago?
Under
the hope that Kenyon Drake doesn't resign?
But I just think we have to be realistic with where he is. I mean, if you say AJ Dillon versus Chase Edmonds, AJ Dillon versus Tony Pollard, like those guys are in the same mode as he is. I mean, that's how fast the value drops.
Pollard too.
Exactly. You could say if the starter went out of the way in all of those situations, you'd probably take Pollard over Dillon, right? If Pollard was the backfield lead back for the Cowboys, and you said that's going to happen for 8 weeks, I'd probably rather have that 8 weeks of Pollard than 8 weeks of Dillon. Don't you guys think?
I would.
So
he would have the pass catching at least for sure.
I think the conversation with Dillon is, do you cash him out for another reset button shot at Jamar Jefferson or Kenneth Gainwell or one of those guys. I mean, it's probably a mid-second at best in 2021. And, if you like Dylan, hold him because he still has the capital. He's still an injury away, but that's all he is. You cannot look at him as anything more than that, in my opinion, at this point.
I was just going to say Jones has only played 16 games once in 4 years. That was 2019. He played 12 the first 2 years and 14 this year. So I'd probably hold and just kind of hope Jamal doesn't resign and, hope for the goal line work and, maybe a little of the first and second down work if Jones is going to be the pass catching back like we were talking about.
Well, if you get 2 games out of A.J. Dillon,
a whole lot of ifs.
if you get A.J. Dillon 2 games and spelling Aaron Jones and he's a RB2 for both those games, I feel like that validates just holding on to him there because that could buy you a win. Right. Cool. So I hope that helped, Joe. We can move on from A.J. Dillon. We got a couple more questions down here. This one in from John again. Is there a Waller, Tunyon, Logan Thomas type tight end on an NFL roster right now, i.e. someone no one has heard of that then becomes valuable?
Okay, John. Couple things, John. One, it's Dynasty. We had all heard of Waller, Tunyon, and Logan, right? I think.
Tunyon,
no? Yeah.
I hadn't.
Well, then you need to get deeper into the weeds. But also, if you check out the draft guide on pages 50-something, there's deep stashes.
Can I cover up John's face?
You can. There's what do you call those? Sleepers, and there's draft values and those deep stashes. We got a couple guys in there. And they're guys that people have heard of, but that I liked. And I forget who brought them up, but we'll just give you a name out of there. Chris Herndon's a guy that could rise from the ashes. And I'm still holding out hope for O.J. Howard. And while we're on the subject, David Njoku.
Is there someone deeper? I've heard of those 3 people. Give me some.
How deep we want to go?
Yeah,
God. I'm sure Scott's got
the
tight end
guy
3 on the
transferred. It was the ex-Buffalo quarterback that.
No, I was gonna go there, Shane, but in deep 2 tight end leagues, pick up Tyree Jackson and Hakeem Butler. Both of them are going to be tight ends on MFL when they flip over. So just stash them. If you compare their profiles, if you remove the fact that Tyree Jackson is a quarterback, Hakeem Butler's a receiver, if you match them up side by side with tight ends, their metrics look really, really good. So I'd just throw those 2 as pick them up now because as soon as they get switched over to tight ends, people are going to start picking them up. Because right now, Tyree Jackson's a quarterback. So people are like, why are you picking him up? It's like, well, he's going to change positions.
Logan Thomas was a quarterback.
I was going to say that's the Logan Thomas story all over again.
It only took him 6 years to hit in the NFL. So hopefully you have a taxi squad.
Yep.
Nice. Now I'm going to go Google those names. If you ever want a deep name to pick up, just message Scott and he's got you on like the taxi squatted backup taxi squad quarterback from a D2 school who has the athletic measurables. Who could potentially transfer positions and be a stud.
I was going to say maybe Bryson Hopkins too, depending on what happened. I mean, I haven't looked into him too much, but it's a name.
I love that, Jeff. I think with the Rams cap situation, I've been saying this for a while. Anybody that they pick up, anybody that use a pick on, they're basically going to have to put on their active roster because they need to fill like 46 roster spots with the rest of their cap space, which is like $40 million. So I think Hopkins is a great call. He's going to be on the active roster. That's one step, right? Making the team. He was a 4th rounder last year, so I think that's a good call.
Nice. Some names out there for you for tight ends. Another one from Matt Superflex PPR: Joe Burrow, Zach Moss, or Wentz, Gibson, a 22-second and 23-second.
Ooh, nice.
Okay, so Moss is useless. So it's really Joe Burrow for Carson Wentz, Antonio Gibson, the second, and the 2023 second.
Yeah, I feel like you can cancel Moss in one of the seconds.
No, seconds count. Seconds matter. They matter until you make the pick, and then they no longer matter. They got currency until then, at least.
I want that on a T-shirt.
They matter.
Seconds matter until you make the pick.
Oh man, it should be Joe Burrow, but for some reason, I still think Carson Wentz is going to rebound to be a top 12 quarterback, and then you're giving me Antonio Gibson, who I think is going to be I hate using the word elite, but at least top 10 running back.
He's at least valued there right now.
Yeah, I'm taking the Wentz side, and I don't think I should.
Who has a better chance of starting week 1, Joe Burrow or Carson Wentz?
Honestly, it's probably even right now. Carson Wentz is injury prone too. He could probably fall down the steps tomorrow. Now that he's not an Eagle anymore, I like throwing this like Carson Wentz is injury prone narrative out there. It's fun.
I think I'm on the Wentz side. Oh,
Agreed.
Scott's doing math. He's trying to decipher
He's
this.
doing a lot of math. Like,
No, I was just waiting to see if anybody had any other thoughts. I mean, I usually would ask, well, how many starters are there? What's the rest of your quarterback room look like? Like, if all I have is Burrow as my QB1, I'm probably not moving him because I'm taking on a lot of risk with Wentz. But a shallower league, I can see you keeping Burrow just because it's, you want to kind of be as top heavy as you can. But if it's like 10 or more starters, and I don't necessarily agree with Shane that I think Zach Moss is useless. I think he's just another, could be. He's just one of those bench depth running backs that you want to have, but you don't pay anything for. But I think the big thing here is the 2022 second and 2022 third. Like, those are things you can carry through the season that can help you buy other pieces. So I do kind of like deals that are designed like this during the offseason. If I can load up on a bunch of extra picks, I basically have money that I can haphazardly spend during the season to buy points. So I love Burrow, but I kind of like the idea of taking the 4 pieces, and it gives me some flexibility too with those extra seconds so I can maybe buy other spots for.
So he said he also has Lamar, and it's a start 2 wide receiver and 3 flexes, super flex.
Yeah, I can't argue with the Wentz side. Yeah, I mean, it is hard for me what I've been doing, and I have God knows how many leagues, but I've been trying to lock in as many leagues where I have 2 top 12 quarterbacks just so I don't have to worry about the rat race at quarterback, season to season. But, like Shane said, he believes in Wentz. So I don't know if Jeff or John believe in Wentz, but if you think Wentz can get there, I couldn't argue that Wentz can't outproduce Burrow in 2021, especially if Burrow misses a couple games or isn't 100%. So.
Yeah, that's my problem with Burrow is, and I guess the injury really did more damage to him in my mind than it should, because I don't know that he's an elite quarterback right now. Yeah, he looked like it. He looked like he could be, but also at some point, Cincinnati's going to run an offense that doesn't ask their quarterback to throw the ball 50 times a game, right? Hopefully. I mean, if they continue to do that, Zach Taylor is going to get Burrow killed. So I don't know that he's elite. I don't know that he's going to be a top 12 guy every year. If this trade, if it was for someone that we were a little more secure in, like obviously Kyler or someone like that, I'd laugh at the dude and then throw things at him. But I'm trying to think of a guy between Kyler and Joe Burrow, and I can't right now.
So say it's Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Little older, don't know his situation past maybe this year, but clearly
Chicago Bears Russell Wilson.
Well, I mean, Russell has a history of finishing, anywhere from like QB4 to 10. Like, kind of what you're getting from him. But
so here's the thing with Rusto, he's so consistently inconsistent that I don't, and I'm probably going to get burned for this, I don't consider him an elite quarterback because there's too many weeks where he's finishing out of the top 15. And I know consistency is a myth, but not at the quarterback position. It can't be in Superflex. So I'd probably still make that deal for Russ Wilson.
So we had this debate in our Patreon channel, but I personally think Joe Burrow will be fine, but I think it's also fair to question what is his fantasy ceiling. Like, I don't know if he has obvious top 3 to 5 fantasy upside. I think a lot of his value right now at quarterback 9 is milked into the fact that I don't think there's not a way he doesn't start for a long time. But I think a lot of his value is milked into longevity. It's not necessarily, hey, he's going to have multiple top 5 seasons. I think I can see him having a career similar to, I don't want to say he's going to last as long, but I think he could have a similar career track to a guy like Breeze, where he could have some high finishes, but they're going to be based on throwing the ball a lot and putting up a lot of yards. Like, it isn't going to be, he's going to be the most efficient guy that also runs for 500, 600 yards. So I think he has more of like a Breeze career arc where he might get there on volume. But like, would you guys take right now? Would you take Justin Fields or Joe Burrow? I think it's a legit debate, but you could also sell me that Justin Fields has way higher fantasy upside. He just has some of those barriers to get to pass before he gets to the Burrow stability part. Jeff, John, you guys got any thoughts on just those? Like, let's say you have to take Fields, but so you get the 102. Would you rather have that shot of picking your quarterback in this class versus Burrow?
I think I would.
I don't know. I kind of lean Burrow there.
Fair.
Honestly. You know he's not getting benched, okay? So that's always something when you're looking for that other quarterback, knowing that your guy's not getting benched. They have to address the line. You know he's going to be throwing. I know Shane was just talking about it, but you know the guy's going to throw it 45 plus times a game. And he's shown that he can do that. He's shown that he can do that with a high margin of success. I'd probably lean Burrow there, but it's not a huge gap. I can tell you that. I had to think about it. It's not a huge gap, but I'd lean Burrow.
It's pretty close for me too, but as gruesome as that injury was too, man, it wasn't just a normal like ACL tear or anything. That was a pretty nasty injury, and he relies on his legs obviously a little bit too to make him successful.
Yeah, I do think generally the way Burrow plays, he's always going to be in offenses that are higher volume. Like, I don't think he's ever going to get in a circumstance where they're actually trying to limit his pass attempts. So I'm not worried about his volume long term, but he was on a 40 plus attempt per game pace last year, and that you don't win in the NFL consistently by throwing the ball 650 plus times. I mean, that's just not the recipe. You probably got to be more like 575 to 600 with a running game, I would say. So
I'm going to use your words, Scott. I'm not convicted really either way. Like, honestly, you could ask me this on Tuesday and I'll be like, yeah, I want the Field side. And on Wednesday, I'd say I want the Burrow side, which also tells me that I don't think Burrow is elite.
Well, and I think it's more 102 or Burrow, which means you technically get to wait and see what happens. You can draft any of the 3 quarterbacks in the spot that you like. So I think that's where it's a legit question. 2 weeks ago, if you would have told me Burrow or the 102, I'm taking Burrow just because I know what I'm getting. But now if you're telling me I'm going to get my choice between any of the 3 quarterbacks in any of the landing spots, I think it's a fair debate. I think he's worth more like 102 than he is 101. But we're going off on another tangent from the question.
Right.
Yep.
All right, so we got a couple more questions in here that we're gonna rapid fire these real quick and then call it a night here before we really get to like an hour and a half. So this first one, Kevin, thoughts on targeting Bryan Edwards? He picked him up for a 21 third. I think that's a pretty solid price for Bryan Edwards, even though I lean more the fact that I think he's kind of dead just because of how the rookie wide receivers, they don't really do much. They don't, that's not a good bet. But for a 3rd round pick, it's a dart throw either way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it for a 3rd. I mean, I'm not going out trying to acquire him, but I mean, for a 3rd, I mean, you're taking a dart throw there. You could take that same dart throw to a number of guys. I don't mind it.
Cool. All righty. We got down here. Before I answered Joe's other question, I'm going to ask to see, is that Creed he's asking about a rookie pick? Is that super flex or 1 quarterback? So if you're still in here, if you could answer that real quick, we're going to just hit on Joe's and then we can better address your question, I think. So I think that's a better context. Joe said, thoughts on Jordan Love with the Packers?
I've been buying him in every dispersal draft I'm in. because I haven't done any startups this year. But every dispersal draft I'm in, he's there after Mitch Trubisky and Andy Dalton. So I'm taking him there. I mean, he's got as much of a chance of turning out to be a useful fantasy asset as Andy Dalton does.
Yeah, I think the way to get Jordan Love is do what Shane did, pick him up late in a dispersal or a startup, but also any of these undesirable quarterbacks that you're not sure of. So maybe it's Winston when he gets signed, or Wentz or Darnold, Garoppolo, any of those guys. I traded Daniel Jones for a 2023 first, and I had him throw in Jordan Love. Didn't even need a quarterback. I just figured, hey, get a quarterback thrown back. I think with Jordan Love might suck, but if he gets his opportunity, you're able to sell him for more than what you bought him for. So I think he gives you a little bit of insulation. It's kind of like buying a non-rookie pick type asset, I guess.
Back to those 23 firsts, huh?
I'm telling you, get them where you can before people start realizing.
I love it. All right, so now we're at, is that Creed? He's set at wide receiver. He's got A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. He also he did answer the question about Superflex or one quarterback. He said that his running backs are Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Antonio Gibson. He has the 1.05 in a one quarterback league. So I would assume that the first four picks are Harris, Etienne, Jamar Chase, and maybe Devonta Smith in some order of those four. So who are we looking at 1.05 if that's the case? Oh, I'm assuming if any of those four there are there at 105, is that the pick? Any of those four that I just named?
I'll take Kyle Pitts over Devontae Smith.
I was just going to say Pitts, especially
especially
with the receiving.
I think we're all
situation.
I think we're all on the same page there. That's the name that popped in my head too, as being the. I mean, if you're getting top tier talent at a position that's scarce, I would take that too at that spot.
I'd take Bateman over Devontae Smith, but I think you guys hit on if Javonte Williams gets top 50 draft capital, I think you could also argue positional scarcity, him going over a receiver just because receivers are easier to find. So that's a tough spot. You kind of don't know with that like 2, 3, and 4 who they like in the receiver tier, or whether they like Williams over one of those receivers. But I think you're gonna get a great player regardless the way this class lines up.
I think you can definitely say that a wide receiver should not be the option here just because of who he already has, and you don't want to insert like another rookie in there. I think the best upside for your roster is Javonte Williams or Kyle Pitts. Just
like it.
Yep.
One way or the other. I have Javonte Williams as my third player overall behind Harris and Etienne, ahead of any of the wide receivers, just because I think Javonte Williams is that fucking good. So, but yeah, there we go. So this guy said, Najee did the Fins, got my tattoo appointment booked for tomorrow. God, as a Myles Gaskin manager, I hope not.
Hey, Gaskin does win. He wins by the Aaron Jones signing. I mean, that's one bullet dodge for him so far.
Yeah,
so you get
He'll dodge the draft too.
Another week to sell him.
But for what though? Everybody's already anticipating. You can't get anything for him.
But what's anything?
That's the problem.
Can I get a second?
All right, you want to? I literally just got this trade offer in my DLF Cup series about 10 minutes ago. Gaskin and Gerald Everett for Jamison Crowder. Is that anything?
Oh, Gaskin and Everett. Everett in 2 PPR. I'd take him over Crowder straight up.
All right. Well, then that's a horrible offer. Okay. Point taken.
There we go.
Shane sent the offer to Addison. You don't really know that.
Right.
He did.
It was for the sake of this conversation right here.
Yep.
All righty. We'll close it out with a Will. Fantastic panel. Love the talk. And is that Creed said, appreciate the response. Thank you. So,
Anytime.
there we go. We're gonna call it here with the live stream. The Dynasty Draft Guide from DLF has released. It is on DLF. It is free for all DLF Premium members. We will have it up for sale to buy individually if you don't want to buy the premium subscription. But I highly, highly, highly encourage everybody to buy that premium subscription because you can get access to everything the DLF has to offer for an entire year at just a little bit more than what the guide would be just as a standalone. So you can go in there, buy a premium subscription now, get a whole year of access, get access to the guide right now, read through it. It might take you a couple days, but read through it and we should be good to go. So yeah, anybody else have anything to add? We signing off.
Just buy the guide and a DLF subscription.
Or
Do both.
or just
So during this entire conversation, every one of us have had the tools page up at some point or another during this panel. So yeah, buy the subscription.
Yeah. The tools are worth it alone.
All righty.
That's it.
Good deal, everybody. I don't really know the best way to sign off on this, so I guess we're just gonna
I'll
hit
close.
the end broadcast button and we'll be good. Oh, Shane, go.
Everyone have a good night. All right. Bye.
Later. Thanks.
Later, DLF.